Thank you for joining me for my presentation today, How does the resource environment influence mating system dynamics? I'm Ginny Greenway, and this work is done in collaboration with my postdoctoral supervisor, Christine Miller at the University of Florida. Humans have long been fascinated by the elaborate weapons and behaviours males use to access mating opportunities. Animals ranging from walruses through to dung beetles engage in intense physical contests to gain the upper hand and outcompete their rivals. The competitive advantage these traits bring contributes to what's known as a male's resource holding potential. Typically, the biggest males with the biggest weapons have the highest chance of securing a female to mate with. However, this resource holding potential is also determined by the resource in question. In this case, a male elephant seal's competitive success is likely to be influenced by many factors, including the density of females around him, the number of rivals in the local area, and the size of the beach he's hauled out on. Taking these environmental factors into account is important when it comes to understanding how sexual selection is acting in populations. Crucially, resource levels can change both within seasons and over longer time periods with anthropogenic climate change. How do animal mating systems respond to these changes? To start to figure out how resource variation might influence sexual selection, there are several scenarios which might arise. In this little cartoon example here, we have a population of beetles, males in blue, females in orange, that are defending access to these green floral resources. The largest male here has the largest resource, and there's a strong association in the figure on the right-hand side between the male phenotype, size, and mating success. The bigger the male, the more mates. Similarly, in terms of the distribution of mating success, one male is doing very well with 3 females attracted to the resource he's defending, and the majority of males have little or no mating success. What might change when the resource level changes? If resources become more scarce, then potentially the females in the population might flock to the remaining resource, and the male that can defend access to it increases his mating success, and the other males miss out on mating success completely. This will strengthen the association between the competitive phenotype and mating success and increase the skew in reproductive success. And we see this in wild horses, in which some males under low rainfall conditions can monopolize access to harems of females. But something else might happen as well. So again, removing the resource could actually lead to the opposite effect, where all individuals, males and females, scramble for the remaining resource that's left, and essentially we have a free-for-all in terms of mating success. The link between the competitive phenotype and mating success is uncoupled, and the skew in reproductive success becomes diminished as more males have access to at least 1 or 2 mating opportunities. And in fact, we see instances of entire mating system collapse in the literature. And so we have 2 different hypotheses as to what may happen when resource availability decreases. Intensity of sexual selection may increase and reproductive skew may also increase, or in fact the opposite might happen and we see decreasing selection on competitive phenotype and decreasing reproductive skew. To test these 2 different hypotheses, we used the insect Narnia ephemerata. This species exhibits a resource defense mating system in which the largest males defend patchy cactus pads and fruit, which females come to feed on and then mate with these males. To study the impacts of resource depletion in a semi-natural way, we put 8 males and 8 females in a sand-filled arena which was populated with cactus pads and fruit and allowed them to interact freely. In order to investigate the impacts of resource availability, we had 2 treatments. One, a high resource environment in which the cactus pads in the semi-natural arena all had cactus fruit with them, and a low resource environment in which only one of the pads in the arena had this high quality fruit resource. And we had 8 replicates of each of these 2 treatments. At 30-minute intervals, we took panoramic images of the entire arena between 8:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. over a 5-day sampling period. From these panoramic images, we could then zoom in and identify all individuals which were labelled with unique ID numbers. We could also record mating events and any contact between these bugs. At the end of the experiment, we took all the individuals out and measured their pronotum width as a proxy for body size. The first question we wanted to experimentally address was how the resource environment influenced the spatial distribution of bugs. Firstly, we wanted to see how long bugs spent in squares that contained a cactus fruit. If they were moving randomly, we'd expect to see them 6/27ths of the time in a square with fruit under high resource environment treatments, and in a low resource environment treatment, we'd expect them to spend only 1/27th of their time in the single square that contained a cactus fruit. What we actually see is that under both resource environment treatments, bugs spend a lot more time than we'd expect if they were moving at random in squares that contain fruit. But does this proximity to resources influence an individual's mating success? Under high resource environment treatments, we could see that individuals that were seen mating on the right-hand side of this figure here spent proportionally more time in squares near fruit than individuals that were not seen mating. Under low resource environment treatments, the difference is even more pronounced. Individuals that mated spent much longer near fruit in close proximity to it than individuals that did not. How does resource level influence the distribution of mating success, however? Does it increase reproductive skew, or does it decrease it or not change it whatsoever? Intriguingly, the resource environment had little impact on male mating success. Most individuals mated only once, and in many cases were not observed mating over the course of the experiment. And we see a very similar pattern in females across both resource treatments. But does resource level influence who is mating? Here we can see that the largest males, on the left-hand side, actually have the highest mating success, whereas the smallest males in each enclosure have the lowest mating success. This is only true under high resource environment conditions, however. When resources are low, the benefits of being bigger actually disappear. And so what we find is an apparent decreasing selection on competitive phenotype, but no change in reproductive skew. So we're definitely not seeing an intensification of sexual selection, but not a full mating system collapse either. And these studies that incorporate environmental variation are important because short-term seasonal effects and longer-term climate change are likely to impact in subtle but important ways the mating systems of many species. And with that, I'd like to thank the Miller Lab and a number of undergraduates who were instrumental in the collection of this data, and UF and NSF for funds. Thank you for listening.